Right, hi everybody. Yeah, want to start, Paul?
Yeah, okay, we'll go for it. Welcome to the Northeast branch here in Newcastle. I don't know how many of you are local and how many are not, but welcome anyway. I'm at home in Newcastle upon Tyne, um, so and I've been the branch chair for almost 3 weeks, so I'm well experienced in um, doing this sort of thing. I'm a CICM tutor. I'm desperately trying to retire, but I just can't stop. And also, I do a bit of debt advising as well in my part time. Um, if you're not in the Northeast, you probably know where it is. It starts, as far as the branch is concerned, it starts in the north in Northumberland and goes down towards Teesside and Darlington in the south of the area. It says on Google it'll take about 1 hour, 40 minutes to drive from top to bottom. Um, but if you're crossing the Tyne Bridge at the moment, add 30 minutes because it's a bit crazy because they're restoring the bridge and it's one lane instead of two, and it's apparently a bit of a nightmare at busy times. Um, so what we got today is we're going to hear about the Hayes salary review and various other opportunities and challenges in the job market. Our presenter, as you can probably see there, is Andrea Morgan, a business director at Hayes here in the Northeast. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat and we'll pick them up at the end. And also, we might even ask you to read your question, you never know. So thank you very much. I'll introduce Andrea now and we'll get going. Welcome,
Lovely.
Andrea.
Thanks for that, Paul. Hi, everyone. First of all, can everybody see my screen? Is it sharing okay? Yeah, I can see everyone's nodding. Lovely. Well, thanks for seeing me today. As Paul explained, my name's Andrea Morgan. I'm a business director for Hayes. Been with the business for 18 years now, actually. 18 years this month for my sins. I am an accountancy and finance recruiter, but amongst that, credit comes under my remit. So I'm sort of one of the specialists on the credit control side of things. And I personally recruit pretty much sort of Sunderland, Durham, and then I overlap with our Newcastle offices and Darlington. I'm actually sitting in Darlington today in the boardroom. So yeah, so we'll make a move. Do bear with me, I'm fighting off a migraine today. That's why I've got my glasses on. So if I seem a bit stop-starty, it's typical. But yeah, thanks for joining us. So first of all, I'm going to start with just a quick snapshot of the general Hayes salary and recruiting trends guide. This guide is available to access for free on our hayes.co.uk. It's constantly updated, so do feel free to go on the website afterwards and click and request, access to your copy. It's interactive, so it's always sitting there. Or if you forget, pop me an email, andrea.morgan@hayes.com, and I can send you the links or answer any questions. So just first of all, to touch on the guide and how we pull it together. We've been doing this, well, this is our 10th annual salary and recruiting trends. 10 years ago, I was out in the car delivering what looked like an old yellow pages, really, a Hayes yellow pages with all of these, the data. But now, obviously, we've moved, the world of work has moved and it's all online. We get a great response every year. We send it out to both candidates, so people who've come to us to look for a new opportunity, and then clients, so people who come to us to ask us to find them, new talent. We had a great response. We've got over 14,500 responses come through from a mixture of employers and employees. It covered 21 different industry and sectors. So as a business, we recruit for finance, procurement, HR, construction, property, education. So pretty much most of the professional disciplines are covered in our guide. I forget how, I think we're about 14 specialisms off the top of my head. Well, we can't be, it says 21 on there. I need to move with the times. I've been here too long. But anyway, overall, there's over 10,000 salaries that are detailed in there because it's regionalised. And we've also got over 15 insights from industry experts within the differing specialisms. So I'm just going to briefly go through some snapshots. We're going to cover the employment trends, what the employment outlook's looking like. Cost of living is on everyone's lips these days, how that's impacting the world of recruitment, upskilling, AI, employee experience, and again, intergenerational working is something that's a hot topic at the moment. So at the moment, in terms of the actual employment outlook itself, this year, employers have said their biggest challenge, over half of them, is actually just managing to recruit the right level of talent. And also talent retention is a hot topic. 61% are struggling to hang on to that talent because there's so much demand. And over 3/4 of the hirers plan to recruit in the next 12 months. So the market, despite sometimes the impressions when you put the news on and it's all doom and gloom, as recruiters we see at the cold face, there's a lot of movement going on. There's a lot of people crying out for experts. Cost of living is a big issue at the moment, cost of living versus cost of staying. So one thing we have seen is most people in most professions have had a good pay rise in the last 12 months. Businesses have had to give them to because of the pressures of inflation and cost of living. On average, 3.5% has been the average salaries across the board, but the biggest rises have been accountancy is in there, but the sustainability field, procurement, and then it mentions legal and supply chain. They're sort of the top areas where we've seen the biggest rises in the last 12 months. And that's employers hoping to try and retain that talent. So in terms of where employees are, candidates, what their thoughts are at the moment, because of the cost of living pressures, their thought processes are very different. So at the moment, over half of employees actually are thinking I might have to move jobs in the next 12 months. And that's quite, shocking data to a lot of employees to think that actually half of your team have probably got one eye on the recruitment market at the moment. A lot of people are looking at, they're worried basically, will their salary cover their living costs as inflation continues to rise? Although the news looked a bit more positive this morning, it is starting to slow down a little bit, but a lot of people are wanting to move because they're not, they need a salary increase. But a lot of people are also worried at 17% that actually if I do move jobs, with all the doom and gloom, little whispers of worry and recession for the last couple of months, if I'm the last into a business, could I be the first out? So it's getting that balance. If you're an employer, you want to increase your salaries as best as you can. If you're hiring, you need to give that assurance that they're going to come to job security as well. So a big part of things that are important to candidates is people want to feel like they are continually being upskilled. It's important to candidates, but it's also important to employers. It's for their business to continue to thrive and move forward. 44% of candidates feel it's really important to them personally that their employer invests in them with training. A similar number feel that it's also just as important though to make sure that that's time is allocated within the working hours, the working day to do that. So not there to train and go and do it on your weekends or on an evening. People want to be invested in and they want to train, but they want it in their working hours. And people are also really open to doing the likes of today or attending relevant conferences, doing online training. So yes, just be aware that your workforce are generally open to training and upskilling. And that's important for you as well, to have your talent at the best level possible. Another big factor that came through on the feedback from the salary guide is ways of working. As we went into the pandemic, most of us were predominantly office-based. As we came out of the pandemic, most office-based roles where the job allows are now offering hybrid working. It's here to stay. It's very important. It's a very, very attractive benefit to people who currently don't have it. And if people like myself who get hybrid working, if I'm going to move, for most people, if you have it, it's a non-negotiable to then you wouldn't move to a job where it's back to 5 days in the office again. So be aware of looking at your working policies. By providing hybrid working though, you'll see on there 52% of employees feel it's really important that their direct team manager or line manager is skilled on how to manage people, because it's a different approach if you've got a hybrid team, some in the office, some off-site. And they also want to be able to feel comfortable that they can share their views on ways of working as well. And again, another topic that's come through is AI. I think AI has been on a lot of people's lips in recent months. I ventured onto, I'm a bit of a dinosaur. I had to try good old ChatGPT a few months ago, and it is amazing, but it is daunting to people that don't use it. And a lot of people think, is AI going to take my job? Is it something I should be frightened of? 6 out of 10 employees don't feel their employer is helping them to prepare as they bring more AI into the workplace, and also to help the employees embrace what AI can bring to their world of work, how it can enhance their job, how it can make it certainly more creative as well in many aspects, as well as saving time and enhancing processes. So again, make sure any AI implementation is talked about openly and embraced. So we're almost at the end of the salary guide snapshot, but a key thing as well, and I see this at the coalface every day as a recruiter, is the employee experience. And that starts from the moment a candidate does a quick Google search, looks at some job websites and thinks, I'm going to apply for that job. I like the sound of it. You'd be surprised how many candidates lose interest because of a really long-winded application process. Maybe you've got to fill out a certain application form or a covering letter. In the current world now, everything's at the click of a button. We can pay for things on Apple Pay. We can order food at the click of a button. The online food shop, I'll do that very quickly. If you get into a lengthy process, the world has changed. We want things to be snappy. So you can see on there, 44% have sort of bailed out when they found a process was just taking too long. And the lengthy side can also be from submitting the application to getting any feedback. Even if it's a polite thank you, but you're not right, so we're not going to move forward with your application. People are keen to get a response. And then interestingly, when people do start a job, almost half of candidates are saying their employee experience does not mirror what they were expecting from being wooed in the application and the interview process. We're asking a lot of employers, just be mindful of your employer value proposition, your EVP. What's good about working for my business? And yes, get it across at an interview, but actually make sure you live and breathe those values as well in the day-to-day operation. So when you're looking at attracting and retaining your talent, it's important for 67% of candidates to have job security, which probably comes as no surprise to most people. But a similar number, it's really important to have an engaging and supportive team culture. And then on there, 52% are looking for flexible working. Now, bear in mind, this salary data came across the board. So, for example, if you're out on site in a construction role, you're not going to be able to really do your home working. So it probably in an office-based role, that number would actually be higher. So that's the snapshot over. As I say, there's about 14,500 responses. I've done that really, really quickly. But if you do go to hays.co.uk/salary-guide, you can go in and you can click on your discipline, so accountancy and finance, for example, and as you click on that, it then further drills down to what areas you would go into credit, and all of the credit information is there. So now we'll take a bit more of a focus on the actual credit market, because that's why you're all here today. So what I've done is I asked our back office, we have a fantastic analytical team who have all this fancy AI, and I can tell them what I'm looking for and data that I'm wanting at my fingertips, and they come back with it all. So I'd explained that I was doing this webinar today and that I'd like to see a bit of a snapshot of or some real tangible data rather than just me, anecdotally chatting to you, but some real data on what the credit market looks like in the North East. So when they put this data together, I asked them for any reports to be relevant for a 40-mile radius of Durham. So I think that pretty much then encompasses the whole of the North East for us. So if you just keep that in mind, it's a 50-mile radius of Durham. Getting tongue-tied there. So this is pure credit. And there's just a little glossary there, probably more for me rather than you guys, but it just explains what the different categories mean. So your supply count, that's going to be me explaining actually just how many people there are in the area with that talent, with that sort of skill set. And then live job count, probably a bit more self-explanatory, but how many jobs there are, and then the rest is quite self-explanatory, but this is how they broke it down. So the first one I asked them for was for credit manager, and I'll be honest, when I looked at the report, it's just a one-page, and you'll see it in a second. I was a bit taken aback by the number, because that doesn't reflect my experience every day as a recruiter. They're actually very hard to find. A good credit manager, there are not many people on the move. They're being very well looked after at the moment. But looking at the data, I'm just going to skip forward one slide. When our analytical team scrape this data, what they do is they have really clever systems that say, for example, a credit manager in a huge shared service centre may well be a standalone position, but actually in an SME owner-managed business, it might be that that credit manager is assumed within a wider position. A lot more hats depending on your job role. So for credit manager, alternate job titles that it scraped the data could be people who are also classed as a collections manager. There could be a senior credit controller. It depends on the business as to what job title they give it. So I'm just going to go back a slide with me. And this is the data that it gave me. So at the moment, this actually, to be fair, this was run 2 weeks ago, just before we finished for Easter. According to our data, and I say this scrapes from our huge one-touch database system, the likes of LinkedIn and lots of other tech that they have access to. At the moment, in the North East, there are 680 people out there who could potentially be seen as a credit manager, depending on the level of the business. And that sounds like a lot, but actually there might be 680 people that could potentially fulfill those roles. But are they, first of all, even looking for a role? They're probably most of them are probably very happy where they are and very well looked after. Interestingly, the live job count was only 2. So at a first look, it would say there are 340 candidates per vacancy on average. But as I say, that doesn't mean there are 340 people looking or actively looking, got the CV out, clicking on job boards, speaking to hiring recruiters like myself. But there are those people out there that we could potentially tap into with the right approach. It's got on here as well the gender split. So it's interestingly 56% of that proportion of that population, are male, and 44% are female. And it's also got the ethnicity breakdown on here, and that pretty much is unchanged throughout the 3 categories that I'm going to show you. So it's predominantly, the ethnicity is predominantly a white workforce. And in terms of experience, it's actually a really experienced marketplace in the North East. Most people that we could potentially see could fulfill a credit manager role have got at least 8 years experience. And so because of that, they're then naturally paid in that upper quartile of salary. And then the lower quartile reflects that maybe is perhaps 0 to 3 years of credit manager experience. So supply and demand, when we actually look at the actual towns in the North East, Durham has got the highest number of candidates coming up with that kind of skill set. Darlington haven't got as many. So actually what the data is telling us is that there are no job opportunities either in the Newcastle, in the Durham area. So those candidates might then travel because there's plenty of candidates but no opportunities. So if you think of the talent sitting in Durham and your job is in, I don't know, Stockton-on-Tees or Gosforth, if you perhaps offer a flexible working policy, you might then attract them to your vacancy because they might be more inclined to travel a little bit further if you're flexible. And then interestingly, the data is where do these people work? So right now, the credit manager talent are sitting in the likes of your shared service centres, the banking sector. We can see on there the likes of Procter & Gamble, Newcastle Building Society, Durham University, BT. From the look at the likes of LinkedIn, when we scrape this data, that's where that talent are currently working at the moment. And then the adverts, one was for Hayes, we were advertising for a client, and then a company called TT Electronics had their own advert out at the time. So those two vacancies, really, they're going to have to pull the talent from the likes of these organisations or similar. And the skills in demand, it'll come as no shock to you. For credit manager, you're looking for management skills, leadership, good data analysis. And then we moved on to credit control, and these numbers, to be fair, instantly made sense to me because we tend to get a lot more high volume credit control. But in the world of credit controllers as such, in the North East, again, 50 miles from Durham, there's just under 4,000 candidates, not necessarily looking for a job, but there are people who've got that experience or do it as part of their current position. And there's just over 1,200 live vacancies or vacancies that need a credit control experience as part of the position. So on that, actually, there are only 3 candidates per vacancy, and I would 100% echo that. There is so much demand for credit controllers and just not enough of them to go around, and certainly not enough of them actively looking. So again, as a credit controller looking for a job, if you're in a great position, because you should be able to get snapped up quite quickly. But as an employer, what you've got to think about is how am I going to try and attract some of this talent that are sitting there, but probably not really looking. They're probably quite happy. Most businesses have given a pay rise in the last 12 months, as we know, because of the inflationary pressures. Most office-based roles are offering hybrid working. So actually, unless you just really, really hate your job, most people are quite happy. So you've got to think about, as a business, what makes us so special? What can we do to make people want to come and work for us? And that's going back to, what is our EVP? What is our employer value proposition? And actually, do we, as well as shouting about it, do we put it into practice so that when we do attract the talent, are we going to retain them? The gender split in the credit control market, it's the other way around. Not much difference, but it's 54% female, 46% male, again, predominantly white ethnicity and experience, again, really experienced population. Most of them have got at least 8 years plus experience. And then the salaries, again, at the very lower end, you're looking at 24, your average is 32, and then the upper quartile, where that credit control position might sit within a wider role, it's coming in at 45. That just touches on the job titles again, so I'll move forward on that. That the data scraped that may well need credit control as part of the position. And then again, supply and demand, this didn't surprise me at all. Newcastle's got the highest number of suitable credit control candidates, and I would echo that in our experience. just under 1,500. So it's actually a really good location to engage with candidates. But it's only had, when we did the research a couple of weeks ago, it only had 305 live vacancies that would be asking for that skill set. So it means that actually the competition, it will be from other employers. Sunderland as a region had the highest number of talent. So that's a really good place to engage with candidates. But again, think about if you're a bit further away from Sunderland, why would somebody from Sunderland then want to come and work for my business further afield? Can I make it hybrid, flexible, home-based, just so you can tap into that surplus talent? Almost there. So again, look at that. Now this is a much busier slide. Where are all the credit controllers at the moment? Similar list of organisations from the previous slide for the credit manager, which would be obviously understandable, your shared service centres, your banking, your big PLCs. But interestingly, look at all those people 2 weeks ago that were advertising for credit control. Everybody's crying out for them. Most of the agencies have got the adverts there, your big PLCs, your banking. So that's when we're speaking to employers, we're trying to get across to them. Credit control is hot, hot demand. So you've got to stop assuming you'll just fill your vacancy and think, how am I going to make my job and my company stand out from the crowd? And also make sure my current staff don't get tempted away. And then skills in demand, you'll all know, being credit controllers, what you need to do for those roles, but they're listed. A lot of people actually were saying when they struggle to recruit, try and tap into more of the softer skills now and look at upskilling people to try and backfill those roles, and think, actually, I've got some, a really good finance graduate, for example, who's good on Excel and got a bit of fire in the belly, good soft skills. Let's just bring them in. We can upskill and we can train these professional skills. They can be trained. So that sometimes is a different approach to if you're struggling to recruit. And then finally, last one, credit analyst. And this didn't surprise me at all. So in the North East, there are not as many. There are 336 people in and around the North East who are, probably most of them, to be fair, are currently working as well as credit analysts. And there was 10 live jobs. So that's 34 candidates per vacancy. But as I say, that's not 34 people looking for a job. There's probably a handful, if that. So that's why people are struggling to fill vacancies. Now, interestingly, the credit analyst roles are predominantly male. 7 out of 10 candidates are male. The ethnicity stats, again, predominantly white ethnicity. Again, good experience. Over 66% have got 8 years plus on there. And then that just runs through some of the job titles that we used for the data. So Durham is a town, or a city, sorry, has got the highest number of suitable candidates. So it averages about 5 candidates who could fill a credit analyst position. So it's a good source of talent. But as I say, they're not 5 people looking for a job. It's 5 people with that talent. So that shows, why people are struggling to recruit. Newcastle has got a good number of suitable candidates, but no job opportunities. So the Newcastle, Darlington, Stockton, Sunderland have got talent, but there weren't any vacancies 2 weeks ago when we did this snapshot. So it just echoes again. If you're in Newcastle and you're struggling to recruit, or wherever, can you offer flexible and pull people from out of your region? And then the top skills, which won't come in as any surprise for a credit analyst position. So in summary, just to round up, the recommendations would be, if you're an employer, make your salary and your benefits package as attractive as possible. So, try and pay the best rates. Always, keep checking in with the likes of our salary guide to make sure that you are competitive. As a candidate, be aware of your worth. And benefits, hybrid flexible working is huge. That's what the workforce are looking for. And at the moment, we're hearing a lot of news about reports about that economically inactive population, which seems to just grow month on month, the data. And a lot of it is people perhaps could be tempted if you could bring them back into the workforce part-time. The 50 plus generations, and a lot of people are wanting to stopped working in the lockdown. I felt actually had a bit of a work-life balance review. I mean, my mortgage is paid off, I don't need to work. Try and lure that talent back into the workforce. A lot of the younger generation, sadly, lost their way a little bit in lockdown. You know, studies fell apart, degrees fell apart. A lot of people struggled with home learning. So again, it's about, could you bring somebody in on an apprenticeship basis and give some brand new opportunities to candidates? Be aware of your diversity and equity policy, your DE&I. Those stats reflected it, even just looking at the stats that I provided there. We need to work more to try and be much more diverse when we're attracting talent. Upskill for the future, so invest in your candidate, in your staff, sorry. They want to be upskilled, they want you to invest in their training, they're more likely to stay if you do. And as a candidate, if it's offered to you, embrace it. You know, it helps you to move with the times as the likes of AI come into the business and into the world of work. The bottom one says, understand your intergenerational workforce. And I have this conversation, it must be 3 or 4 times a week with employers. And it's to say, when you're offering a package, or you're trying to have a candidate stay with you, what's important to somebody at the age of 21? It's generally all about the money and how much is in my bank and can I afford to go on holiday. It's about the here and now. And then the likes of myself, it's very much, actually, I'm planning for my future. What does my pension look like? Can I work flexibly? I'm a working mum. Can I finish a little bit earlier? So just understand that what's important to me is probably not important to the person logged on next to me, and make sure that your offerings are flexible enough that there's something that everybody can dip into. And be aware of your EVP, your employee value proposition. Have a look at it. Have you got one? If you haven't got one, you know, sit down, pull one together, but then make sure you really do live and breathe it. Because as we move forward, well, you've seen at the beginning of the presentation, interestingly, salary wasn't one of the leading things that were making people want to necessarily to move at the moment. So just look at how you can work, are you flexible, what's your EVP, what does your business do, what are you proud of, and shout it from the rooftops and try and tap into some of that regional talent. And that's it, I believe. I think I've covered everything. It can be a bit dry going through numbers, so I hope it wasn't too boring in places. I'm not a numbers girl myself, to be fair, but thanks for listening. But anybody got any questions?
Yeah, thank you very much, Andrea. That was great. I got a couple of questions myself, but I'll read the one that's there from Karen. I think I know Karen. It's a comment really. I generally find that those who spend the time to complete a good job application do a good job if appointed. I would view that those who lose interest aren't really that keen anyway. So I think this is about when you talked about the time it takes to actually apply for a job.
Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, there is an element of care and attention when applying, but obviously when we're speaking to candidates every day, not only are they chatting to me about vacancies that I put them forward for in the process, and you know, but also they'll give me feedback on other opportunities that they're exploring through their own means. And it is interesting that some people just do get a bit frustrated as well. If it is a bit lengthy, probably more, I think these portal-based applications can be a little bit tricky to navigate sometimes, but yeah.
Question there, is the presentation available for other parts of the country? I'm in Portsmouth. I think so, yes. I think if you're a CICM member and you have access on the website, you'll get access to the presentation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and if you want me to share this, I can. And
yeah.
the actual salary guide itself is free and open to everybody to download from hayes.co.uk. It's really good. To be fair, I often refer back to it to myself, you know, clients who want a bit of information, because it's live and interactive and constantly updated. It's good. It covers benefits and, you know, not just the salary numbers, but the wider benefits that people look at. And it's regionalised, which is really helpful, especially for your bigger organisations.
Okay. I think yes is the answer. I'll be able to share the presentation via email. I think Andrew will send it on to Tom at CICM and he can send it out to everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
My question was, I was thinking of taking AI from a different angle. Um,
Mm.
I've heard on the grapevine and that a lot of people use AI for covering letters. And I just wondered about sort of the honesty and integrity of this. And I just wondered if you've had any experience of people doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, at the moment, not so much. And the reason being is our actual application process is very much just asks them to upload a CV rather than a covering letter. It tends to be a covering letter is more if they're applying to a business direct where they're wanting more of a tailored approach. Um, AI's got its place. I've had a look for writing job descriptions and I thought I'll give it a go, you know, I'll embrace technology. And I just feel like um it has its place and it can help sometimes with just new wording. I do find I repeat a lot when I put an advert. Imagine how many adverts we put together every week. I sometimes feel I'm repeating the same old phrases. So it can be helpful, but just make sure that it's still your voice, if that makes sense. A client once said to me something about my LinkedIn, and she said, "When I read your posts, I can hear you saying it, Andrea." And I thought that's how I want it to be, because you want to keep what's good, special about you and your individuality. So
Right. And a question here from another Paul. Good. Any useful tips for successful benchmarking of roles to salary, especially where a role is more specialist? For example, where a company sees it in monochrome. Salary expectation, and well, you can read this. A must fit role B, otherwise they are reticent to offer standard cost of living increase. Right. Do you see that question there?
I can't see anything questions,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So what was that?
Right.
What's the best approach for benchmarking when the job's not particularly black and white?
Yes, yeah. And whether the salary expectation must fit the role, otherwise they are reticent to offer above standard cost of living increase.
Yeah, I think if it was you as an individual negotiating your salary, and I get you in this particularly niche job that you do, um, a standard cost of living rise is all well and good, but then actually sometimes what employers have to think is the cost it would also involve them to find another you if it is very niche. So I'd just have some preparation. I'd have a look on job boards and see if there's any competitors who might need a similar kind of you for a similar type of role, and see what kind of salaries that they're paying as well. But yeah, I think so, but also you've got to bring value, and if you are looking to negotiate on your salary, sit down and have a think about anything that you've done over and above the job, any new systems you might have implemented, any new processes, any particular business wins you've brought in, or just rather than I've come in and I've done the job every day, you know, enhance it a little bit, and any special projects that you've looked after. And that sometimes can help people go, oh yes, actually we didn't think about that. We do have, if it's a wider scale as an organisation, we do have a specific Hayes benchmarking, but it's a service that they offer to a business to go in and can say, we'll benchmark your whole university, for example, or your whole local council, where they'll look at those roles individually. But as an individual looking for your negotiating your own pay increase, I think it's about being market aware about where you stand and what you could get if you went somewhere else, but also what you've given internally to the business.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. I don't know if you want to come in, Paul. Are you happy with got anything to add on that?
No,
Find them.
that's very useful. Thank you, Andrea. I think the key thing is it's somebody else on this call who works with me and for me, and that's Mike Picasso. Something that we're looking at the moment, we're in the construction industry, and there's a role that we have that has traditionally been benchmarked as a supervisory role, but it's anachronistic because it's more of a team leader role, and a lot of what Mike does now is leaning in towards credit analyst and credit specialist.
Yeah.
And our business is quite traditional, and so we've attempted to benchmark that job in terms of salary expectations. Not much of a boost, a little bit of a boost because of the marketplace, and we've met with a little bit of resistance. So this was one of the options for us to actually be part of this forum today, pick up some useful information, which we have. We're not in the northeast, we're in the southeast. We're right down in the southeast, but the information you've given us has really helped.
Yeah, what I would recommend as well is do go onto the Hays website and first step, log on to the request a salary guide. As soon as you go onto land on the first page, there's an obvious click there for it, and then it's regionalised. So find your go into your specialism, then drill it down to your region, and then just have a look at some of the job titles and what it does. So for example, if it was a credit team manager, it'll have it, but it'll also say, is that in an owner managed business? Is it in a PLC? And it'll have a typical, and then a top of the range, and then an average, and then you can sit and have a look, and that might help you narrow it down a little bit. And also, just out of curiosity, go onto Hays and see if we've got any similar roles that we're actually advertising at the moment. That can really help sometimes for your benchmarking. And think about the job, look at the job title that you've got at the moment and the job, and then think about the actual job that you're doing. And actually what you probably need to do is rewrite the job description as well, because things do evolve and change. And I think by saying, actually, you were paying me for that job title, but when we've sat down, this is what the role actually entails now. Maybe it does need regrading, and off the back of that, by regrading it, it looks more like a whatever title you want to give it. And looking at the salary data, I feel that's the salary that it should reflect as well.
Okay, that's really good.
Because jobs do evolve over time, don't they?
Yeah.
And the longer you're with the business and the more experience you get, it's like anything, we take on more because we can do things, without thinking about it, because we know our industry so much. And then suddenly you've outgrown your job role, but you're still doing it, or you still got that title.
That's spooky. It's like you actually know our business inside out. But...
That was a bit scary, that, yeah.
I don't, I promise you. I'm sitting in Darlington.
Okay, you were.
Thank you. That's really useful.
Yeah,
You're
thanks,
welcome.
Andrea.
And anything you need, just my email's andrea.morgan@hays.com. If you're struggling to find what you're looking for on the website, pop me a link and an email, and I can redirect you to the link.
Fantastic.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Any more?
Hey, thank you. I think that looks like the end of the questions. I did have one, but it's very basic. I hope you don't mind. It's a problem I used to have when I attended interviews, and it was, what questions do you ask at the end of an interview? They always get somebody that you go through all the questions, then they say, "Have you got any questions?" And all I can usually think of is, what's the highest mountain in Europe? I just can't think of anything that's useful.
We get asked it a lot, and my advice would always be, if you can't naturally think, because sometimes you're going through the interview, you think, oh, they haven't covered that, I'll ask it at the end. But if you're stumped and they've covered everything, a way around it would be, I was having a look at your website over the weekend or whatever, and I could see that you've recently secured that contract or that business win, or I saw you in the business news, or just, if you haven't got a question, just flatter them to show that actually, because they have covered everything, you haven't got any questions, but you are interested, and let them realise that you've actually looked at what they're doing as a business and you're aware of them, and flatter them that, you know, you've seen them in the business news and their wins, or you've seen their employee value proposition and that really appeals to you, or the charitable work that they've done. Just drop something in the conversation and they think, oh, he's really interested in us. And then they forget that you didn't actually ask a question. You've just,
Right.
but you
Yeah.
still had something to contribute to the interview. That's very positive. One
I
thing I
think
will
it probably,
say, don't just, if you
yeah.
can, don't discuss salary unless a client brings it up at interview. Because a lot of
Right.
people, if you really want a position, you're sitting there thinking, I don't want to talk them out of me. And people's knee-jerk reaction is we naturally go in at the bottom end of what we would probably do the role for, and actually sit back and be comfortable in your value. And if they're going to offer you the role, that conversation will come up, but perhaps at a different time when you've had a chance to catch your breath and truly think what you feel your value is. Because actually, if you go in at 5k lower, it's very difficult to then drive it back up. And they'll say that in, you know, so if you can avoid salary conversations unless they bring it up.
Yeah. There's just one more from Tracy. I was given a tip by a recruiter. What do you enjoy about working for XXX, the company? Would you say that that's a relevant question to ask at the end of an interview?
Yeah, absolutely. Or even just those like little personal things, like how long have you been, you know, someone was asking me, how long have you been with Hayes, Andrea? And just, I've been here 18 years. Oh, it must be a great place to work. And what do you like about it? So yeah, absolutely. Just some nice warm conversation. We try and get that out of hiring managers actually when we're chatting to them. I took a vacancy in for somebody else this morning. And as I was going through it, I don't particularly know the business. I was going through it. And I said to them, I know the individual who's come with the vacancy, but I was like, so what is it? How are you finding it? What are you liking about being there? You've been there 3 years now. And I just got a little bit of that extra. And to him, it was the fact that they were growing very quickly. And, you know, it's an exciting time to join those business. Just those little snippets really help.
Right, well, that's it. So I just got two more things. One is, first of all, to thank you, Andrea. That's great. I think this really went well. A lot of
Good.
good
Thank you.
information. On behalf of the branch, thank you for doing this for us. And then I've got a bit of an ad for the branch. If you're up in the Newcastle area on the 13th of June, we've got a Lego Serious Play team building event. So lots of adults sitting around a table playing with Lego is the sort of idea. The information's on the website, the CICM website. So probably not a lot of help to somebody in the southeast or in Portsmouth, but if you're up in the northeast, look it up, and if you're free, sign up for it.
I've stepped on many a piece of Lego over the years. Having a young, oh, he's not so young now, but a young
I
son.
bet. Yes, I bet.
If anybody's got any
Yes.
questions that I haven't, because I can't see the questions that came through, it's andrea.morgan@hayes.com if there's anything I've not covered off.
Right. Right, that's it. So thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and we'll probably see you again at some point. Yeah.
Thank
Bye
you.
then.
All right.
Bye
Bye
bye.
now. Bye everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thanks.